Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Please check out the KCC Discord linked in the description down below. There you can talk to me and a whole bunch of KCC fans who hang out there on a regular basis. I look forward to seeing you there. Our first story today comes to us from Tacky Queen. Dense supervisors inadvertently forced me to do less work for the same pay. A saga continues. Let's jump right in. I'm back with another tale of that incredibly inept supervision team, myself as a union president, and a bizarre series of events which resulted in me being unable to fit more than 4 hours of actual work in my 8-hour shift. All because I did exactly what the supervision told me to. This one takes a bit of backstory to understand how it all came about. So when I left off my tale, I was working at an absolutely filthy factory in the campus in which I was contracted. I worked there for a number of years, but then began to develop issues with my lungs. As filthy as the job was, I'd actually liked that position, but I decided to bid on a different position at a much less risky facility. Part of this move is that I began to float between buildings as needed, which was incredibly convenient for my union work. The only negative is that for whatever reason, employees at that building had a different shift negotiated into the contract, meaning I had to be clocking in at 6 a.m. every morning. I am not a morning person, so this was almost a deal breaker, but I reasoned I'd have more flexibility in my university schedule if I switched, so I went for it. I scheduled my classes according to this schedule change, and worked there for a bit over a year with no issues. The only small complication is that I was one of 2 people who staffed this building from my department, and the other lady had suffered a serious medical event and was off on leave indefinitely, leaving me alone most of the time. That was fine, I was able to keep up well enough at first. I was really into fitness at the time and had been going to the gym every day after work and class. So generally, I had no issue with the physical labor at the previous building, and no issue running back and forth between buildings at this new site. I also had to drive between locations to assist with other tasks, but that wasn't an issue either, until I suddenly began to get dizzy spells I couldn't quite put my finger on. I was alone on site, so I couldn't slow down, so I just powered through. The first time I fainted, I actually didn't know for sure that I'd fainted. I actually assumed I'd tripped and ate crap on the cement so quickly I just couldn't process it. The second time, there was a witness, and it became a whole deal. Ambulance called and the works. I couldn't explain what had happened, so I had to go out on short-term disability until I got clearance from cardiology to return to work. Yes, it was just run-of-the-mill POTS, but I wasn't allowed to return without clearance per the contract. I wound up being out for about 6 months, and I wasn't happy about it. So when I was finally cleared to return, I was informed that they had given my job to someone else, and I was starting at a different facility I definitely didn't want to be at, and a different shift. This was a problem for multiple reasons. Firstly, I'd scheduled my classes based off the job I'd been hired for, not whatever shift they decided to give me when I returned. Secondly, they couldn't give away the job of someone out on short-term disability without consent of the person on disability, and I had definitely not consented to this change. Thirdly, they definitely couldn't change my shift without my consent. This was especially well protected in the contract. Unfortunately, the girl who'd taken my job was a new hire, but had bid for my position through the appropriate process and had done so to be on a shift that allowed her to not have disruption in her childcare. Switching shifts to the job they'd unceremoniously shifted me to would mean she wouldn't have anyone to take care of her child after preschool. I felt for her and decided I would grieve the matter and make sure we both walked away from the situation with what we wanted. After a lengthy negotiation, a lot of swearing and threats, mostly from me to the supervision about what would happen if they pulled this crap ever again, I negotiated that I would permit the girl to keep the job I'd been in previously, but only if they met my demands at the new facility. Firstly, I was going from a generalized labor position to being an office cleaner. I told them no, I wouldn't do that, as it was a downgrade of my role. They would have to find me a position in my role, and I would not be engaging in the role of the cleaners. If they needed to hire more cleaners, then that was their problem. Secondly, I insisted I would not change my shift. It was non-negotiable. I didn't care if I was the only person out of 50 starting at 6 a.m., it wasn't going to change. Thirdly, I caught wind that they'd moved the girl to my role despite her not being paid for the labor role. They paid her just over minimum wage as a cleaner to do labor duties. I insisted they give her every penny of back pay she was due for the work she'd been doing, but this time at the proper rate. In the end, supervision had no way to argue it, and while I wasn't happy, it was a small victory. Then I had another fight. This facility insisted on having set break times honored. I didn't have a way to argue this, as break times were mentioned in the contract, but we didn't have specific language allowing for flexibility. The first time I encountered this was my first day, as this was the only facility that also had a mandatory beginning of shift meeting. I arrived at work and clocked in by 6 a.m., and by the time I had my lunch in the fridge and my lights turned on and machines unplugged for the day, it was 6:25 a.m., and I had to walk close to a mile through a building. I could slightly shorten this if I cut through an alley, to the main offices for the 7 a.m. shift meeting. Initially, I thought that seemed absurd, but I had asked for permission to not attend, as the walk alone ended up being close to 40 minutes round trip, not including however long the meeting ran. I was told I absolutely could not miss this meeting, and she was really smug about it too. I asked her if she remembered my hours, but she rolled her eyes at me. I mean, okay, if you insist, I did try to warn you. So, as instructed, I was forced to attend this understated meeting and honor my strictly scheduled break times. My day ended up looking like this: 6 a.m. arrival and lights turned on, equipment unplugged, 6:25 a.m. Walk between buildings for shift meeting at 7 a.m., shift meeting 7:20 to 7:30 a.m., return to work location 8 a.m. break. So the entire first 2 hours of my shift, I was unable to get any work done. Nothing. After my break, I still had to prep all equipment, check equipment for safety, replace any parts needed, often very time-consuming, check and organize my work orders, and then I was on lunch at 10 a.m. So by the time I had my lunch break, all I had time to do from 7:15 to 10 a.m. was get my equipment ready for the day. Things I would have normally done before my first break, but I was told I had to attend that meeting and didn't have time to start a project before I had to take my lunch. My supervisors came over a day or two later, absolutely spitting with rage and ready to write me up. Unfortunately for them, I'd written out the entire schedule. As they'd told me, my break times were non-negotiable. It was also non-negotiable that I had to attend this shift meeting a building over. I asked if they remembered the explicit instructions they gave me in this regard. For some reason, they looked absolutely thunderstruck. They had inadvertently ordered me to accept a schedule that prevented me from getting more than about 4 hours worth of work done. The kicker was that they couldn't take it back without setting a precedent that exceptions could be made at that location. I could see the cogs trying to turn as they tried to figure out if there was a way to punish me, but I had only done exactly what they insisted I had to. So yeah, I did as I was told, and they inadvertently gave me a job that prevented me from doing more than half a day of work. But I had to be paid for the full day regardless. It also allowed me a lot more time to work on union paperwork, as I wasn't constantly getting in and out of PPE, and was able to catch more of their contract violations being closer to the main office. I'd like to think that I made their lives just a little bit more hellish, and it was in large part facilitated by their F-up trying to mess with my work location and hours, and failure to notice what they'd done to my schedule by ordering me to hike a country mile for this meeting. I worked in that position for the last few years I was there, and it was a running joke the entire time. OP mentioned in the comments down below that they didn't become a union president to sit by and let people get steamrolled. They made sure that everyone got the pay that they were due. Honestly, I was so happy reading this story when I came across the part where they got the replacement, a working mother, brought up to their pay rate and even got them back pay. OP, you are an effing legend. Do me a quick favor and take a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're actually not subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. This next story comes to us from Amaron. Bill by the hour? Then I want the full hour. Let's jump right in. Years ago, I worked in the head office of a national corporation. Although we were all salaried employees, everyone had to keep a weekly timesheet. We had to account for everything we worked on, so our department could bill the appropriate team or group for our time. This was a company-wide requirement, so it wasn't just a case of our leaders micromanaging. The least time you could log was a 15-minute increment. Every minute of every day couldn't be billed to other departments, so we had a code that was billed to our own team's budget. This was used for general tasks not specifically attached to any ongoing projects, like checking emails, status meetings with your manager, training and development, and even filling in the timesheet. Management emphasized that we should use our team code as little as possible. I later learned that the less time billed to our team's code meant a bigger pool of bonus money for our whole team at the end of the year. One of the internal services that regularly billed our team's code was IT. Anytime we needed computer support, they'd send an agent who would troubleshoot and fix the problem. When work was done, they'd get us to sign a work order so they could bill our team. No big deal. About a year after I joined the company, the IT department changed their billing protocols. While every other group in our company would bill you in 15-minute increments, IT decided that they'd bill in 1-hour increments. No idea how they sold that to the VPs, but no one objected. So if IT only took 15 minutes to solve my issue, they'd still bill my team's code for 1 hour. It didn't take long for my bosses to notice that our team's code was being billed a lot more than it had in the previous months, but no one connected the dots and tied it to the new IT billing practices. Cue malicious compliance. Here's how the next encounter with the on-site IT agent went. All done, please sign this invoice. This invoice is for 1 hour's work. You were only here 15 minutes. New policy, just sign it. I'm sorry, I can't do that. I don't have time to argue. We're really busy and I have to move on to the next ticket ASAP. Tell you what, I won't bill you for this visit, but next time you'll have to sign regardless of how quickly we can solve your problem. This happened a few more times, and I continued to object to any bill that didn't reflect the actual time spent on my issues. They kept agreeing to give me a free pass this time. After about the 4th or 5th time, the IT agent finally stood his ground. You have to sign this invoice. I'll gladly sign it in 45 minutes, once you've been here a full hour. Feel free to pull up a chair and sit down. He was clearly frustrated, but he decided to call my bluff. He sat down. A minute later, he pulled out his laptop and started working on something else. What are you doing? Getting caught up on a few things while I wait out the hour. Oh, no. This is my time. You're not allowed to work on anything else for anyone else. What do you expect me to do? Just sit here and do nothing? Yes. If you want me to sign that invoice, then you will sit there and do nothing until the hour is up. This guy was stubborn, so he did indeed sit there for the rest of my hour. I signed the invoice and he went on his way. I shared this story with my colleagues, and they all decided to do the same the next time they needed IT support. This went on for about 1 week. Then IT changed their tune. They no longer asked anyone on my team to sign off on any invoices unless the job actually took 1 hour or longer. It turned out that they were generating so many billable hours doing this to every team across the company that dealing with our malicious compliance wasn't worth it. They chose to service our team for free rather than give up those other 45 minutes they could bill to 2 or 3 other departments at 1 hour each. That year, our team saw nice bonuses when we had a massive surplus of funds in the team's budget. I heard the IT team made out like bandits on their bonuses, while many other teams saw little to nothing. The next year, the whole internal billing system was overhauled. We didn't have to account for our time anymore, and IT stopped issuing anyone invoices. All billing was managed at a more senior level. Can you guys just imagine how effed up a company has to be to have different departments billing each other and also having their bonuses somehow tied into that system? What a load of absolute crap. Also, the fact that IT was able to just stop billing OP's department for all of the services they were providing just shows how poorly that whole company was monitoring this system in the first place. Just a disaster waiting to happen. This next story comes to us from NoWay6986. You don't want to let me go? Okay then, I will stay, but not as you think. Let's jump right in. Hi, old lurker of this sub, but first time when I have a story to share. English is not my native language, you know the drill. So last year, after 3 years unemployment, and last 2 of them trying to qualify for better work, after I passed only theoretical exams but not the practical, I decided to take a break and clear my head before I try again. I was 1 month home, bored AF, and decided to take the first job I got from my unemployment services. Other name here, you get what I mean. I said from beginning that I will try, that I'm bored at home and that is not my first choice of work area, and I will stay only as long as I am feeling okay. A month ago, I said I will start to search something else, but I will stay until at least they find a replacement for me. Everything was okay, work was good, but around the same time, our leader started to bully me. You have to do this and that. You forget this. You made a mistake and you have to cover it from your salary. You are not finished with your tasks in that 8-hour shift. You stay until you're finished without pay. I had enough. I found something better and I gave them my notice. I tried to make it friendly, but my boss, who had no idea that I want to go until he got my notice, said I can give notice only on Sunday and I have to stay 2 weeks after. Okay, boss, I said I will do it. I worked that day, and before my shift ended, I started to complain about back pain and other stuff. After my shift was done, I didn't give a fork about unfinished tasks. I said to next shift that I'm sorry, I did my best, more I can't do, and home I went. Next day, I called my doctor, a wonderful one who's always covered my butt when I told him I needed a break from work or school, etc. And he told me I need infusions for 3 days in a row, therapy, and at least 10 days I am not allowed to work. I sent my boss all the details. Aftermath. Today, my boss called, ready to end our contract early because it's cheaper for him to end our contract and pay me until the end of notice for my sick leave. I tried to tell you, but you didn't want to hear it, and if you try to force me to do something I don't want, well, it won't be cheap for you. I know labor laws are very different in different countries, but here in North America, Canada, USA, we're pretty much the same. So when you give notice, well, it's when you give notice, not when they tell you to. And you're absolutely not obligated to work for free, ever. Glad you got out of that one, OP. This next story comes to us from Ten Chimkey. Microsoft Windows is free? Sure, I will install a trial version that is free. Let's jump right in. I worked in a computer repair shop as part of my internship and encountered an unreasonable lady. The job was simple. The lady wanted to reformat her computer because her computer was acting up. As part of the standard operating procedure, I need to inform the customer on service being rendered and the final cost, where they will sign it off in case of any dispute. In a bid to get the best bang for her buck, she adamantly requested that we upgrade her operating system from Windows XP to Windows Vista without additional cost. I kindly advised her that it's more of a downgrade than an upgrade. There are additional costs involved if she wants to purchase the license for it. The lady went into a rage and said that I'm trying to scam her because Windows is supposed to be free. I decided to call my manager, and after some discussion, my manager decided to let her know that there's a trial version of Windows Vista which we can install for her, but she will need to purchase her own license later on. I wrote on the forum stating that we will do a reformat on her computer and install a trial version of Windows Vista, which I repeatedly told her that once the 30 days are up, she won't be able to use her computer properly. She promptly signed it, came back a few days later to collect her computer, and even gave me a smirk as a sign of victory. Sorry, madam, you are not having the last laugh here. To nobody's surprise, after 30 days or so, the lady called in and complained about why her computer was no longer working, and demanded that we send someone over and fix the problem ASAP. My manager took the phone, explaining to her that we had warned her about the dangers before she signed it off. The lady was very furious on the phone and hung up on my manager afterwards. First of all, most serious people about computers wouldn't touch Vista with a 10-foot network cable. Secondly, there are few pleasures in customer service as satisfying as when those types of customers hang up on you. Check out all 4 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.